Hey, everybody. I am Becky. Thank you for tuning into the Guerrilla HR Podcast. This morning, I went and I was working out at the gym, and it is hot in there. Like they have air on, but it is hot, and they are working you so hard. And one of the guys that was in the class, actually, today there was only one guy in the class, it was a room full of women. But anyway, this guy is like, "Oh my God, it's so hot in here. Can't you guys turn the air down?" And I was like, "Dude, you have no idea. Like, try being like a middle aged, overweight lady. Like, you think it's hot. I am melting right now." And so I was kind of laughing internally at that. But it also made me think about something in our current events in the HR world. And that is that Rhode Island recently put into place regulation that requires employers to consider accommodation for conditions related to menopause. So we have all kinds of federal laws and we have state laws and different laws and regulations that protect women during things like childbirth and pregnancy and after childbirth. But we don't have that continuum that as women get older, there are some things happening physically and mentally where they may potentially need some accommodation. So just recently that went into effect in Rhode Island. So Rhode Island, way to go. I'm glad that you're ahead of the game thinking about women in that continuum of their life. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully other states will follow and women will be able to provide and do what they need to at work and feel good about it. All right, let's move into our topic for today. We're going to talk about something that's called quiet cracking. This is a term that was new to me, and I actually did a little TikTok about it, and I got a bunch of hate about it, but that's okay. We're still going to talk more about it. Have y'all heard this new workplace term, quiet cracking? For a while, we had quiet quitting. People had low engagement. They were just kind of doing the bare minimum. Now people are staying in their jobs, and instead of looking for something new or finding a way to get out, they're holding on to it until they totally crash. They're so burnt out and then they can't function. Don't go to quiet cracking. Get resources, get help. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So, quiet cracking is a phenomenon that we're seeing in workplaces where people are staying in jobs where they are truly miserable. They are just staying, they're still trying to perform and deliver and do the things that they need to, but they're staying to a point where they are just so mentally beaten down. They are tired, they might be moody, their quality of work starts to deteriorate, but they feel like they can't go anywhere else. Maybe they can't leave. They have to stay, they have to work. And even some of the comments were like, well, I would love to just quit my job, but I have to put food on the table. Yes, I know you have to put food on the table. I am not saying like, just quit and have no backup plan. But there's a lot more that we can be doing along the way so that we can hopefully prevent this quiet cracking where we reach the point of being almost totally burnt out. So with this phenomenon, basically employers like they look fine, they're showing up, they're smiling, they're maintaining their professional behavior, but really silently they are just struggling. They are becoming disengaged and they are becoming burnt out. So, is this a new phenomenon? No, this has certainly been happening, but it's something that employers are starting to see more and more in their workplaces, and they're feeling it in the work that they're getting out of their people. They're seeing it when they do have people in some situations who do have a backup plan, or they are able to find another job or find a different way to get the money that they need to survive. And so, employers are feeling the impact of that. So I also understand that the labor market right now is trash. It is not good. Employers are slow to hire right now. There are not nearly as many jobs opens as we have seen in the past. We are starting to see more layoffs, and it's just all around, it's not great in the labor market. And I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing more of this phenomenon of quiet cracking is because people do feel like they're really stuck. They feel like they don't have any options and there's nowhere to go. So there are some things that can help us identify when this is actually happening. So one of the things is that you may be experiencing like just some emotional distress. You still put on that professional face, like you're doing the things that you need to do, whether that's working remote, showing up in an office, whatever it is, you still got that professional exterior, but inside you're starting to really feel a little bit overwhelmed and hopeless. And again, it's beyond just like, oh, I think I can fix this right now. It really is like as we move further into that true like dread and despair about the job. Some people might start to see dips in their performance. It's not something that's necessarily instantaneous. Like one day they're really great and the next day like they can't do anything. But certainly we start to see people who start to feel a little burnt out. They might feel overwhelmed. They might have some mental confusion because they're tired. They might not even be sleeping. They might not be getting the rest they need. And so some of these people we might start to see where they have a little bit more trouble with decision making or creativity or maybe collaboration and they work with other people may start to decline. We can also see some behaviors where people start to withdraw from their workplace a little bit. For those virtual folks, this might be people who would normally have their camera on. They don't want to turn their camera on. They might be leaving shorter messages. They might be avoiding conversations with other people. This is something that I've actually heard from several of my clients recently. They're finding that some of their employees are being really short in their communication, and they're not necessarily people that were short before. And so it's something where instead of having a productive, collaborative discussion or conversation or dialogue over chat or Slack, they're starting to see people who are just a little bit short, and it's really becoming rude. And so that is them creating a performance issue. We might also see increased absenteeism, people who maybe never really had an attendance problem or a problem being where they needed to be at the right time. They might start to have some other issues and things where now they're like, I gotta stay out of work. I can't come in, I can't do what I need to do. We also start to see where employees have a little bit of reduced initiative. Instead of stepping up and volunteering for tasks or finding a way to get more engaged, instead they're stepping back and they're like, I don't want the added challenge. I don't want the added work. There's nothing else here that I'm going to do. Why does all of this even matter? Well, it matters because one, I care about the people, right? When we show up at work, we are bringing our whole self to work. We are complex beings. We have lots of feelings. We have lots of thoughts. We have lots of different ideas. And so when we have people that are progressing towards the level of burnout, where they're truly exhausted and they're truly dreading going to work, it's going to have an impact on the performance of the company. So we're going to start to see losses in productivity. We're going to start to see more performance issues. We're going to have some higher turnover. And depending how bad it gets, you might even have somebody who ends up doing some harm to your business because they're not showing up and providing the service to their customers the way that they used to. All right, so we have this quiet cracking. So the question is, what can we do about it? So as an individual, there are definitely some steps that we can take. So the first one is don't gaslight yourself. If you are feeling bad, if you are feeling dread about work, acknowledge it. It is okay to be afraid. It is okay to have fear about the uncertainty in the world, about your money and how you're going to pay your bills, your family, the job. It is okay to have some anxiety over that and to have some fear over those things. So acknowledge what you're feeling. Then once you've got that, start to think about some boundaries that you can put in place. Now, I understand that you are working for somebody and that you don't want to be insubordinate. You don't want to get yourself into trouble, but you can think about the things that are really within the scope of your role. And if there are things that maybe you can start to say no to or push back on in a professional, respectful way. Again, I'm not saying that suddenly you're just like, nope, I'm not doing it, not doing that report, not showing up at that meeting, not answering those calls. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in a professional, constructive way. As an individual, I would also encourage people to take action where they can. You might have those little things where you're like, I get to make this decision and I have power over it. Have the power and own it. Years and years ago, when I was very early in my career, I had a job that involved all kinds of different things. So I was doing some HR support and some facility support, and people would come and complain about like the snacks in the kitchen. Like this company was so amazing and so generous. And so they would provide soft drinks and waters and snacks and all of these different things. And you would be amazed at some of these people that were making like, I don't know, 100 times more than me would come in and complain because like they didn't like the honey grams, they wanted the cinnamon grams or something stupid like that. And so here I am listening to these people complain, making way more than me, but I owned that power to pick the snacks, and I was like, that's right. I get to pick them and I'm going to get the things that I want. So, as an employee, if you are in this position where you're feeling like I am not loving work right now and I'm starting to feel really checked out about it and I don't necessarily want to, take the things that you own and own it. Run with it, feel good about it. Nothing wrong with that. And get the snacks that you want. The other thing that I would encourage people to do is to think about their lives outside of work. I know some people have this ability to really shut off. And so, like, my husband is really good at this. He could be at like 4:59 and be annoyed about something or upset about something and complain about it. But like 5:01, I'm like, okay, did you guys come up with a resolution? He's like, I don't know, that was work. I'm done for the day. That's going to be a tomorrow problem. I never had that ability. I always held on to things, which is part of the reason I had to start my own business, is because if I was going to feel all the responsibility, I wanted to have the responsibility. So think about what can you do outside of work? What are ways that you can not necessarily distract yourself, but get yourself involved in things that do give you excitement and things that do bring you joy. As an organization, there are also things that we can do. So one of the things that we want to do is create a work environment where people feel safe to come and tell you what's going on and to share those feelings with you. Again, I said as an individual, you need to be willing to acknowledge those feelings. But then as workplaces, we need to do a better job of having an environment where people feel okay to speak up. This is really hard to do if you don't build a culture of trust. So we need to train our managers to be able to talk to people, talk to their employees about the issues that they're having. We need to be able to ask them, individuals as well as supervisors, in a back and forth dialogue of what can be changed in this job before you get totally burnt out and what can't. I'm not saying that we cave as employers and give everybody everything they would potentially want, right? I want a job that, pays me $100,000 a year to pet puppies for 2 hours a day. That's not going to happen. I own my own business and I could, come up with reasons all day long why I think that's a good idea. That's just not realistic. So I'm not saying that we just give in and do everything, but have honest conversation about what in a job can be changed, what can be changed in that work environment to try to help get some engagement from that employee and improve the situation. And let's not forget that those supervisors and managers, they answer to somebody else too. I often hear like we start at kind of the lower level of employees and we forget some of those middle managers. They're facing the same things. They might also be in this quiet cracking position. So we've really got to do a better job at having some open and honest dialogue in order to move forward. We also want to make it okay to talk about workload and to talk about projects. And when we have work coming in, we want to make sure that we're able to sit and say, all right, this is what I've got the capacity for. We have a lot of organizations that are operating pretty lean. Many have been doing that for a long time, but especially in our current economic situation, we have places where if somebody leaves, maybe they're not backfilling that role. They're looking for ways to save money during this kind of crazy time. And so maybe they do cut some positions. That work doesn't necessarily go away. So we need to continue with those honest conversations to make sure that we're saying, if we have somebody who's gone and somebody else has to pick up the slack, are they able to do it? Do they have the resources and the tools in order to be successful? So we've got to be careful about just dumping things on people. We also need to talk to our managers and help them do a better job of identifying the signs of when somebody is starting to get into this quiet cracking and starting to get burnout. We need them to be able to have these conversations and initiate some of these conversations. I am not suggesting that we tell our managers to go out and be like, I think something's really wrong with you. Like, are you feeling crazy today? No, 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 nothing like that. But we can have our managers and supervisors say, things seem a little bit different. Your behaviors seem a little bit different than they've been. Is there anything we can talk about? Is there anything that I can do to help improve the work situation for you? So we need to be proactive. We need to have these conversations. Some of the other things that we can do to help prevent this quiet cracking is to schedule periods of rest. And what I mean by that is workplace rest or time to really focus on certain tasks. So part of that might be scheduling times where you don't have meetings. Maybe it's a whole day, maybe it's certain hours, maybe it's, before 9 you don't have meetings and after 4 you don't have meetings. But create some time where people have a little bit of control in their schedule. And I understand that doesn't work for all jobs, but where you can, creating those blocks so that people know this is the time where I can focus on my individual activities versus the time where I'm going to be collaborating and working with others, whether that's in person or virtual. We can also schedule some downtime instead of waiting until after the busy rush or after the busy season, which is what I often see. Maybe you have that big push and you're like, everybody's showing up and everybody's working, and then you take a day off at the end. Do one up front. Say, we know we are coming into our really busy period. We know that people are going to be working really hard and that this is going to become a more demanding time for you. So let's take a day off now. Let's do some of these fun things and some of these activities together up front so that then we feel a little bit more charged, a little more focused when we hit that busy period. One of the other things that I would encourage both individuals as well as organizations to do is to think about continuous learning. So, when I talk about quiet cracking and people feeling like they can't leave and they're just stuck, we need to think further out than just today or tomorrow. So, by that, I mean, think about what are some trainings or skills that you could offer as an employer or that you could seek out as an individual to improve your work situation over a period of time. It might not be something that can happen tomorrow, but maybe you can work on some leadership skills and apply for a supervisor position. Maybe there's a different coding language or some kind of technology certificate. Can you work on that? Is there a certification in your field? Start thinking about long term what you want and start taking some steps now to work towards that. We heard about quiet quitting for a long time, where people were feeling like, all right, I'm going to do the bare minimum, I'm going to show up, and then I'm going to work on an exit strategy. That is better than quiet cracking. We make a strategic decision to say, I know I'm going to do the bare minimum when we're talking about quiet quitting. That's better than having people get to a point where they are just so burnt out and they are so exhausted that essentially they can no longer function successfully. We don't want to hit that point. We want to make sure that we are engaging in our workplaces, that we're having conversations to support each other, knowing that there are times when we all feel fear and uncertainty. So let's come together, let's address those issues head on, and look for ways to make those workplaces successful for both the workers and the employers. When we work on our skills to make changes, that will give us some long term action. Maya Angelou had a quote, and she said, if you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. I think this applies here. So if there's something in your workplace that's really leading you to feel that dread and really feel unhappy about work, think about what you can control and what you can change to improve that situation. And if there's nothing you can do, remind yourself of your why. Why are you working and showing up? And if at the most basic level it is, I need a paycheck so I can put food on the table, then remind yourself of that. You can say, I know I don't like what I'm doing right now. It's not forever, but this is what I have to do to take care of myself and my family today. Work with employers, have those conversations. Again, let's make this a win-win situation for the employers and the employees. We can definitely do it. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you come back and listen to another episode of Guerrilla HR.
That's it for this episode of the Guerrilla HR Podcast. We hope you found some unconventional wisdom and actionable advice to help you in your own HR journey. Remember, we're all working together to build better workplaces. Want to join in the conversation? Send us your questions, stories, and maybe even your own guerrilla tactics to podcast@guerrilla-hr.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your network. Until next time.